along to Learn and Thrive's newest webinar all about our next series for Teach Me Too called Maths Before Numbers. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Karen McGuigan from the Maths for Life. And first of all, I'm going to ask you, Karen, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are and why you're here today?
Absolutely. So I'm Karen McGuigan. I am the author and founder of the Maths for Life programme. More importantly, I am mother of 3 boys, Dexter, Lance and Cal. And Lance has got Down syndrome, which is why I started doing what I did, which is to build a maths programme for those with learning difficulties. I have known Joe for quite a while, and I was a trustee of Learn and Thrive for his first 3 years in existence. And I'm always passionate about educating both our educators, so parents and teachers, and also trying to make sure that we have a way in which we educate our children in a cohesive manner, and we reach the people who otherwise can't attend groups. So I've always very much backed the concept of what Learn and Thrive is trying to do.
Oh, brilliant. You've been a massive supporter, so we're very, very, very thankful for all your support over the years. And what's been really brilliant is this new Teach Me Too series, which we're so excited about because it has been quite some time since Teach Me Too has brought out new material. We've been working more on the Learning for Life project, and just really pleased that we're coming out with this Maths Before Numbers project. And the inspiration behind that was, although we've got the maths strand through the Teach Me Too project, actually I know that for me and you, we've both talked about it over the years, the really huge importance placed on those really early skills, and actually how those early skills tend to fall more to parents and nursery settings and preschools, and actually how we can practically put that into our day-to-day lives. So tell us a little bit more about what do we actually mean by maths before numbers, because people are a bit like, well, maths is numbers, right? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, you know, maths is numbers, but maths actually starts long before we introduce the concept of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do this as a demonstration, but if I ask you to describe how you would write a number 5, you go, it is a straight horizontal line, a straight vertical line, and a big round curve. And that is typically how we describe things. But we have already made the assumption on a lot of language: straight, horizontal, vertical, big, round, curve. 6 words we've assumed that a student understands what they mean. And maths before numbers is about tackling that understanding. So speech and language therapists love it because it really is keen into the actual, what do these words mean? What is the building block for starting to introduce the concept of numbers? And there's nothing before the pre-number concepts. That's what we start maths, it's pre-number concepts. So maths before numbers is all about the pre-number skills. And we categorize them in 4 levels: comparative words, understanding same and different, understanding the concept of matching, and understanding the idea of categorization. I've always believed that one of the things that we do in our lives is we sail through them so quickly, and we don't realize how much they underpin our ability to do mathematical reasoning, because they are the building blocks for making decisions, for understanding things like same and different. And I've always said that for me, when I'm doing the pre-number skills, it's about learning that knowing the wrong answer is as important as actually saying the right answer. So it's about, you know, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. If I remove 2 wrong answers from the question becomes easier. So in life, quite often I say knowing that it's the wrong answer helps you towards getting what the right answer is. And those are what we try and build up in the pre-number skills. It's all about the language, it's all about the decision making.
And I think a lot of it is also around where I think a lot of us, you know, I've got she's 16 now, which seems unbelievable, but actually when she was little, that assumption that, like her brothers, she would pick up on the language, she would pick up on the mathematical aspects of language through inference and naturally through our day. And actually what we found is certainly what you know, same as what you found, or how you're working with your program, is it's all about labeling that language, talking about that language, making that as part of your normal usual day. So what kind of practical tips can you give parents, but also, you know, nursery workers, teachers? What practical points can you give to help them reinforce these pre-number skills, but without doing a sat down kind of specific session?
Understanding the language and using it in every type of scenario. We are very we're very attuned to teaching in silos. So Maths for Life is not about sitting down doing a maths lesson. It's about using the words in context. So when you're coming back with the shopping, which bag is light, which bag is heavy? Yeah, is the packet of crisps light? Is the flour heavy? Actually doing it in a practical, using the words while you're modeling them. And I think one of the practical things that parents can do is keep demonstrating it in loads of different scenarios. So you talked about inference. One of the things that children with Down syndrome find really difficult is generalization. So we learn what a triangle is a blue piece of plastic. But when we give the same shape in a wooden form, they don't recognize it as a plastic because they see the blue plastic as being a triangle, not the fact that it's a triangle with 3 sides and 3 corners. And that's a shape, in anything with that shape with 3 sides and 3 corners is a triangle. So generalization is one of the things that parents can help by showing it in loads of different scenarios. So when you're out for a walk in the forest, looking at tall trees, looking at wide trees, looking at going over, going under, all of those lovely words that you think, oh, but that's just things we do. They are the building blocks for understanding maths. Describe a fraction. The number 1 is on top. There is a line, the number 2 is on the bottom. Knowing top and bottom is actually one of the building blocks that you need. So all of this lovely language that comes before numbers is really important, but it's really easy for parents, once they know what that language is, to filter it in. On one of the pilots that we did, I challenged the group to do a bank holiday weekend measurement bingo, and I gave them a list of words they had to put in and use. And the amount of examples that came back to me, obviously shockingly, lots of involved glasses and drinks, but it was all about the glass was empty, it needed replaced, I want a tall glass. It was all of those words used in context that our children start to see the generalization. So using the word small in 10 different ways by showing things. What is small? Yeah. So the shoe is small. Yeah. That shoe is smaller than daddy's shoe. So it's about showing what it is in context so that they see the word small related and they start to build up that generalization.
Yeah, and it's just such an important one, isn't it? And it's again, like you said, that labeling continuously. I think it's a real habit. So once you're doing it, it's quite easy, isn't it? But to start doing it feels very alien. A bit when you start signing or thinking with your child, like actually it feels really alien and a bit odd, and it's hard to kind of do. But once you've started doing it for a while, actually you then find yourself signing in the pub to your husband across the thing because you're so used to doing it. You're like, do you want a drink? So it's one of those things that if we can build those habits into our lives for our young people, that it can be really helpful. So why do you think it's important that we build these strong foundations in math skills with our children and young people? What is their future ahead that makes it so particularly important for our populations?
So the building blocks are key to ensuring that they are embedded. And we run through things, I think, too quickly for them to be embedded. And the problem with that is then at this point in time, they've understood those words, but in 2 years' time, because they haven't used them or they weren't embedded, they haven't. So I think it's really important for now that all of maths relies on a solid foundation. And when you have a solid foundation that is built and can be built upon, it means that we can go further in life. The building blocks are essential. Sometimes we're in a situation where our students can show that maybe they're doing more advanced maths. And the reality is that they still have gaps which will limit them moving forward. So when we look at the building blocks, it's the whole raft of maths that we're looking at. We're not just talking about numbers, because maths building blocks underpins all of our language with regard to money, time, measurement, our understanding of data and data handling. So all of those lovely things that when we put them all together and we build then the maths blocks on top of them, they enable our students to have a more comprehensive life. They could potentially get a job because they have got the building blocks. They will not get taken advantage of because they understand the value of money. So it is really important when we look at what we're doing is the building blocks at the beginning of our journey are what allows us to build. I always say it's a 2-story solid house. That's what we want. We want the foundations with a 2-story solid house. And I've always said that it's much better to have simple maths done accurately, independently, and in real life than it is to be able to get a GCSE in maths, controversially, because actually it's more practical. So I'm more interested in building a solid foundation, even if we don't go as far as we think that we should be going, because the day in, day out maths that we use is simple.
And just to kind of throw this one in, looking at how well someone is, or how well a child is included into early years, into infants, into school settings. Do you think the children that have had a really secure and kind of specific approach to maths in those early years, so they are using those labelling techniques, they have been engaging in things like this new series, they're getting those concepts really down and really tight as much as possible. Do you think there's a difference between those guys and how well they can be included into a mainstream setting compared to maybe children where they aren't necessarily doing those more specific guided activities?
Quite a hard one to answer because it could be quite controversial. I am all for inclusive education, but the reality is when it comes to maths, you have to work at the level of the student and what they're capable of doing. And I think it's probably the only subject where you can be limited. And actually the inclusion that's needed is working at the level of the student. I think across the board in mainstream, we need to do things differently. It's not just children with SEN and our children that are, you know, I think there needs to be a curriculum revision on what we're doing to make it more relative to the world that we live in today. But I do believe that if you get the building blocks right, you're building on solid foundations and not quicksand. So therefore, you will have the ability to maintain a constant learning. Now, that may not keep you parallel to your peers, but what it does do is keeps you in a path of contact. There always is there are things that you do in the curriculum that if not underpinned correctly, it doesn't matter what time or what age you introduce it. If they don't have the underpinning skills, they're not going to be able to do it. And fractions is one of those ones that I love to quote and go, you know, it is not appropriate to introduce fractions in year 1 to our students when they have still no concept of what sharing and dividing is, which is something that, so the order in which they do it doesn't make sense. But do children who follow a more structured pathway of building blocks, will they advance further? They will advance further in their own maths ability. So we've already seen that. I'm lucky in the position of being able to monitor students with Down syndrome who started on Maths for Life 4 years ago. And I can only cite one example, but one example I'm really proud of is the student who started age 4 years ago, who's now age 8. That student is benchmarking at the same level as the teenagers who started the pilot. So we know that our children have the ability to learn and learn very effectively if learnt and taught, or if taught, if taught the correct way. And if you actually teach the building blocks in the right order and secure them and build on solid foundations, we will get further. The joy that I have is I have no idea how far. But we now have a program that brings us up to level 5, and that is a program that delivers all the maths that you need for life. So I look forward to the first group of students with Down syndrome graduating through the entire program, because we don't know what the upper limit is when we teach our students correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you so much for being involved in this Maths Before Numbers series. We're really excited about it. And like I said, it is the very, very beginnings of maths, and I think it'd be really great if people can kind of go and have a look, get involved, see what you think, give us your views, come back to us and see what we could do differently in terms of the filming and what actually helps your children, young people to follow along with the programme. But also if they want to know more and they've got maybe children following on through that, how can they do that, find out more for the Maths for Life project?
Absolutely. All you need to do is Google Maths for Life and you will find us. But the thing that we're really pleased with is the amount of schools that are coming on board to teach Maths for Life for their students within it. And, you know, I'm going to be thankful for the Down syndrome community, because some of those were led by parents bringing Maths for Life into the school. And actually schools are now adopting it for not just children with Down syndrome, but for a large cohort of the children. In some schools that may be 10 to 20 students. So I kind of feel that in a way, by bringing the Maths for Life into mainstream school, we are creating a more inclusive environment for students to learn, because they're not learning alone. They're learning with a cohort of students that can benefit from this tailored approach. So if you want to find me, mathsforlife.com.
Brilliant.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that, Learn and Thrive are doing for the students out there. It is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Karen, and thank you for coming along today.
Thank you.